Chew on this, McJobs. For almost 200 years, Martinsburg, West Virginia was a sleepy little community at the northern tip of the Shenandoah Valley. The town was founded in 1778 and named after Thomas Bryan Martin, an officer during the Revolutionary War. The first settlers came there on horseback along the Cumberland Trail, an important trade route in the early 19th century, and cleared the land for farming. The land was perfect for growing apple trees, and soon more apples were being grown in the Martinsburg area than almost anywhere else in the world. A number of Civil War battles were fought in the area, but on the whole, life in Martinsburg was peaceful and calm, year after year. A railroad passed through the city center, and a few factories were built nearby. As workers moved into houses downtown, small businesses opened to serve them. At J.C. McCrory Company 5 and 10 cent store, you could buy socks and pants. At John W. Dean Company, you could find children's shoes. H.L. Doll & Company was a popular hardware store, and the Alice Governess Confectionery on South Queen Street was the place to go for ice cream, candy, and chocolate. All of these stores were owned by people who lived in Martinsburg, and farmers from throughout the county came into town to do their shopping. The Tip Top restaurant at 119 North Queen Street sold a mean corned beef hash with meat from nearby farms. The town didn't have a single McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, or KFC, and yet, somehow, people still managed to eat. In the mid-1960s, a 26-mile stretch of Interstate 81 opened on the western edge of Martinsburg. The new 4-lane highway changed the town forever, connecting it to two big cities about an hour-and-a-half's drive away, Washington, D.C., and Baltimore, Maryland. Life in Martinsburg soon began shifting west toward Interstate 81 as though pulled by an irresistible force. The automobile now determined where and how people lived. All along the interstate, fast food restaurants and chain stores started to open. Family-owned historic businesses downtown closed, and Martinsburg started to look just like any other sprawling American suburb. You could pick just about any city in the United States and see how fast food and the automobile have changed it over the past few decades. The kind of suburban development that was once found only in Los Angeles has spread across the country, and with it has come a feeling of sameness and a loss of what was once special, unique, and memorable about these places. Today, Martinsburg no longer has the feeling of a sleepy little town. The number of people living in the area has more than doubled since 1970. Martinsburg now sits in one of the fastest-growing counties in the United States. Many of the new residents moved there from Baltimore or Washington, D.C., hoping to escape city life and enjoy being in the countryside. But so many people have arrived that the countryside is quickly vanishing. When you drive outside Martinsburg, you see piles of apple trees beside the road, dug up at their roots, making way for new housing developments. In 1942, there were about 3 million apple and peach trees in the area. Today, there are about 300,000. The last remaining farmers are selling their land to real estate developers, and new neighborhoods with names like Quail Ridge and Sycamore Village cover the rolling hills. Fields where apple orchards once stretched as far as the eye could see now lie buried beneath thousands of nearly identical two-story houses. After the highway opened, most of the family-run stores in downtown Martinsburg closed. People now do most of their shopping on a mile-long strip near Interstate 81, a stretch of land that used to be part of two farms. During the 1980s, the land was sold to a real estate developer for $350,000. Over the next 20 years, the developer earned more than $30 million, selling pieces of the land and bringing in chain stores from out of state. Today, the hotels, motels, restaurants, and stores along the strip are exactly the same ones you find all over the United States. Days Inn, Holiday Inn, Office Max, and Walmart. Hampton Inn and J.C. Penney, Waffle House, and Outback Steakhouse. The neon lights along the strip, the rush hour traffic, the acres of pavement, and the boxy, soulless buildings create the sort of feeling that songwriter Joni Mitchell once described. They paved paradise and put up a parking lot. In 1970, Martinsburg had 6 fast food restaurants. Today, it has more than 40. The fast food chains profit from the new suburban sprawl, encourage more sprawl, and help determine what the sprawl looks like. They build large signs to attract motorists and try to draw as many cars as possible into their parking lots. They love traffic, lots of it, and put new restaurants at intersections where traffic is likely to increase, where development is just getting started. Fast food restaurants often serve as the first wave of sprawl, rolling into a new area and then starting a flood of identical stores. Whenever a new McDonald's opens, other fast food restaurants soon open nearby, convinced that it must be a good location. The McDonald's Corporation has perfected the art of choosing the best places for new restaurants. In the early days, Ray Kroc flew in a small airplane looking for schools so that he could open new restaurants near them. When you're up 1,000 feet in the air, Kroc once told a journalist, you can see the schools and the traffic patterns, and you put that all together, now you're not looking at a town, you're looking at a market. McDonald's later used helicopters to help figure out how suburbs were growing, looking for cheap land along new highways and roads. The company sought places where lots of cars would drive past and children would live nearby. During the 1980s, McDonald's became one of the world's largest purchasers of satellite photographs taken from outer space, using them to get an even better view of local neighborhoods. What might seem confusing to someone on the ground, the relationship between one street and another, the distance between one highway off-ramp and another, looked clear in photos taken miles above the earth. Soon, other companies started buying satellite photographs, and a technology that was originally invented to help the U.S. military spy on its enemies became one more tool to help fast food chains sell more hamburgers. Just add hot water. Danielle Brent is a 17-year-old senior at Martinsburg High School. On Saturday mornings, the alarm in her cell phone goes off at 5:30. It's still dark outside as she stumbles into the bathroom, takes a shower, puts on her makeup, and gets into her McDonald's uniform. Her father stays in bed, but her mom always comes downstairs to the kitchen and says goodbye before Danielle leaves for work. Sometimes it's really cold in the morning, and it takes a while for the engine of the family's old Nissan Maxima to start cranking out heat. There are a lot of things Danielle would rather be doing early Saturday morning, such as sleeping. But like thousands of other American kids her age, she gets up and goes to work at a fast food restaurant. It's a 10-minute drive to McDonald's, and by the time Danielle gets there, the manager and a few workers are already unloading paper cups and wrappers from the storage area. They're also removing the frozen pancakes, frozen bacon, frozen McGriddle biscuits, and frozen McMuffins from the freezer. Occasionally, they're all so busy that they don't even notice that Danielle's arrived, and she has to bang loudly on the back door until the manager lets her in. Fast food chains often put attractive girls behind the counter to deal with customers, and that's where Danielle works. The first thing she does at the restaurant is log on to the cash register, punching the last 4 digits of her social security number into the touch screen. Then she grabs a cup of coffee to clear her head before the doors open and customers start pouring in. She usually doesn't feel awake until 10 or 11 o'clock, about halfway through her shift. But that grogginess never gets in the way of her job. Danielle thinks she could operate the cash register, as well as most of the other fancy machines, in her sleep. Up and down the Interstate 81 strip, teenagers like Danielle run the fast food restaurants of Martinsburg. The same is true throughout the rest of the country. No other industry has a workforce so dominated by teens. Teenagers open the fast food outlet in the morning, close them at night, and keep them going at all hours in between. Even the managers and assistant managers are sometimes in their teens. Unlike Olympic gymnastics, a sport at which teenagers tend to be better than adults, the work in a fast food kitchen doesn't require young workers. Instead of relying on a small, stable, well-paid, and well-trained workforce, the fast food industry seeks out part-time, unskilled workers who are willing to accept low pay. Teenagers have long been the perfect candidates for these jobs. They usually don't have a family to support, and their youthful inexperience makes them easier to control than adults. The labor practices of the fast food industry have their origins in the assembly line systems that were adopted by American factories in the early 20th century. Although the McDonald brothers never studied how to manage a factory, they understood the basic thinking and applied it to the speedy service system. Ever since then, the system they developed has been widely used and carefully improved. The kind of thinking behind the assembly line remains at its core. As a result, the fast food industry has changed the way millions of Americans work and turned restaurant kitchens into little food factories. At Burger King restaurants, frozen hamburger patties are placed on a conveyor belt and come out of a broiler 90 seconds later, fully cooked. The ovens at Pizza Hut and at Domino's often use conveyor belts. The ovens at McDonald's look like commercial laundry presses, with big steel hoods that swing down and grill hamburgers on both sides at once. The burgers, chicken, French fries, and buns are all frozen when they arrive at a McDonald's. The shakes and sodas begin as syrup. At Taco Bell restaurants, the food is assembled, not prepared. The avocado dip isn't freshly made by workers in the kitchen. It's made at a gigantic factory in Michoacan, Mexico, then frozen and shipped to the United States. The meat at Taco Bell arrives frozen and pre-cooked in vacuum-sealed plastic bags. The beans are dehydrated and look like brownish cornflakes. The cooking process is fairly simple. Everything's add water, a Taco Bell employee says. Just add hot water. Although Richard and Mac McDonald introduced the speedy service system, it was a McDonald's executive named Fred Turner who perfected it. In 1958, Turner wrote a training manual for the company that was 75 pages long. It was a book of instructions that described how almost everything had to be done. Hamburgers were always to be placed on the grill in 6 neat rows. French fries had to be exactly 0.28 inches thick. Today, the McDonald's manual has 10 times the number of pages and weighs about 4 pounds. Known within the company as the Bible, it tells workers exactly how various appliances should be used, how each item on the menu should look, and how customers should be greeted. Cooking instructions are not only printed in this manual, they are often designed into the machines. A McDonald's kitchen is full of buzzers and flashing lights that tell workers what to do. At some fast food restaurants, computerized cash registers give commands. Once an order has been placed, buttons light up and suggest other menu items that could be added. Workers at the counter are encouraged to increase the size of an order by recommending special value deals, dessert, a larger soda. While doing so, they are told to be upbeat and friendly toward customers. Smile with a greeting and make a positive first impression, a Burger King training manual suggests. Show them you are glad to see them. Include eye contact with the cheerful greeting. The strict rules at fast food restaurants help to create food that always tastes the same. They help workers fill orders quickly, and they give fast food companies an enormous amount of power over workers. When all the knowledge is built into the operating system and the machines in the kitchen, a restaurant no longer needs skilled workers. It just needs people who are willing to do as they're told. Workers who lack skills can be hired cheaply. Instead of celebrating individual talent, the system seeks workers who are interchangeable. It seeks workers who can easily be hired, fired, and replaced. Long hours, low pay. Fast food workers are the largest group of low-income workers in the United States. Moreover, the rate at which fast food workers quit or are fired is among the highest in the American economy. When you have a good job, you don't want to leave it. A person who loves his or her job generally tries to do it for as long as possible. Many people, such as teachers, have the same job for as long as 20 or 30 years. A typical fast food worker quits or is fired after only a few months. One of the reasons fast food workers leave their jobs so often is that the pay is so low. Almost 70 years ago, the U.S. government established a minimum wage in order to make sure that employers couldn't force people to work for nothing, or next to nothing. The minimum wage is the lowest amount of money that an employer is legally allowed to pay a person for each hour of work. Most American industries pay their workers a lot more than the bare minimum. The fast food industry, on the other hand, pays the minimum wage to more of its workers than any other industry in the United States. As a result, keeping that minimum wage low has always been part of the fast food industry's business plan. Whenever members of Congress try to raise the minimum wage, which in 2006 was only $5.15 an hour, the fast food industry always fights hard against any increase. And it almost always wins. Between 1968 and 1990, the years in which the fast food chains grew at the fastest rate, the real value of the minimum wage fell by almost half. The real value of the U.S. minimum wage is lower today than it was 50 years ago. The fast food chains earn large profits as wages fall because it costs them less money to hire workers. Many jobs in the United States provide good wages, health insurance, vacation pay, and all sorts of other nice benefits. But fast food jobs generally don't. About 9 out of every 10 fast food workers are crew members. They prepare the food in the kitchen, take orders behind the counter, and sweep the floors. They are usually paid a low hourly wage, receive no health insurance, and have little control over their working hours. Crew members are employed at will. That means if business is slow, they're sent home early. And if the restaurant's busy, they're kept longer than usual. A typical McDonald's or Burger King restaurant has about 60 crew members. They work an average of 30 hours a week. By hiring a large number of inexpensive workers and sending them home when things are slow, the fast food chains are able to keep their labor costs low. Fast food jobs can teach basic skills, such as getting to work on time and learning how to work with other people. A handful of fast food workers are paid a regular salary. Each restaurant usually has 4 or 5 managers and assistant managers. Assistant managers tend to earn about $25,000 a year, about $12,000 less than the average full-time worker earns in the United States. They receive health insurance and may get a chance to climb up the ladder to better, higher-paying jobs in the company. But they also have to work long hours. Spending 40 hours a week on the job is the norm in the United States. Some fast food assistant managers work as many as 60 or 70 hours a week, and the job offers little opportunity for independent decision-making. The computer programs, training manuals, and equipment in the kitchen decide how just about everything is done. Fast food managers do have the power to hire, fire, and arrange the daily schedule. Much of their time is spent trying to persuade crew members to work hard and have team spirit. It's not an easy job, and managers often leave after just a year or two. The long hours, low pay, lack of health insurance, and strict rules that must always be obeyed have given fast food jobs a bad reputation. Indeed, any job that's boring and doesn't pay well and doesn't teach important skills is now known as a McJob. According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the American Heritage Dictionary, and the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a McJob is a job that's low-paying and offers little opportunity to get ahead. McDonald's isn't happy about that dictionary definition and has publicly complained that it isn't fair to the company. But the dictionaries insist that's what the word actually means. A McJob is a job that doesn't promise much of a future. Too much work. Almost every fast food restaurant in Martinsburg has a sign that says, "Now hiring." The fast food companies have become victims of their own success, as one business after another tries to steal their teenage workers. It used to be that fast food restaurants were the only places that would hire young people. Now teenagers work behind the front desk at hotels and make phone calls for telemarketing firms. In Martinsburg, a lot of teens try to get jobs parking cars at a local racetrack and casino, where they can earn $8.50 an hour. Other kids are eager to find jobs as salespeople in the clothing and shoe stores at the Martinsburg Mall, where they can often get discounts on merchandise and visit with friends who are shopping. The least popular jobs are the ones at fast food restaurants. When Danielle was a little girl, she loved to eat at McDonald's. Sometimes she'd even eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner there. When she was 16, a friend suggested that she apply for a job at the McDonald's near Interstate 81. The friend already worked there, classmates of theirs always ate there, and working behind the counter sounded like fun. Danielle soon realized that the job was different from what she'd expected. Some of the customers were rude. Workers in the kitchen didn't always wash their hands and didn't care if the food got dirty as a result. Her friend soon quit the job, but Danielle can't afford to do that. She needs the money. A number of kids at school tease her for working so hard at a job that pays so little. Kids who break the law and sell drugs at her high school earn more money in a couple of hours than Danielle earns at McDonald's in a couple of weeks. Danielle refuses to have anything to do with drugs. She knows too many people who've gotten in trouble that way. Although Danielle doesn't like her job at McDonald's, it's honest work. Danielle, like many other high school students today, is under enormous pressure to earn money. Not very long ago, even in poor families, the father would work and the mother would stay home to raise the children. Nowadays, both parents often have to work, and their teenage children have to work too. The kids leave high school in the afternoon and go straight to their jobs. Sometimes they work to buy clothes or computers. Most of the time, they work to pay for their cars. When kids go to work, they're not at school, they're not playing sports, and they're not doing their homework. If the job is boring and doesn't teach any skills, it can make them dislike having a job and doubt that honest work will ever get them anywhere. Studies have found that kids who work 20 hours or less a week during the school year usually benefit from the experience and gain self-confidence from their jobs. But kids who work more than 20 hours a week are much more likely to cut classes and drop out of high school. Danielle worries about the amount of time she's spending at McDonald's. Sometimes she's there on school nights until 2 in the morning. At school, I'm really tired and I can't do my homework a lot, she admits. In many states, it's against the law for children under the age of 18 to work after 11 o'clock on a school night. In West Virginia, however, it's perfectly legal for 16 or 17-year-old kids to work very long hours. Sadie Lambert, a friend of Danielle's, used to have a job at a McDonald's in Martinsburg. She also worked at a local convenience store. During her senior year in high school, Sadie worked every day after school from 2 in the afternoon until 10 o'clock at night. On Saturdays, she worked at the convenience store from 6 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon, then at McDonald's until 10 at night. On Sundays, she went to church in the morning and then worked at the convenience store in the afternoon. She worked 7 days a week. One Saturday when she was 16, Sadie worked from 8 o'clock in the morning until 4 in the afternoon at McDonald's. Just as she was getting ready to leave, the manager asked her to stay and work for a few more hours. Some of the other crew members had failed to show up. When a new manager arrived at 7 o'clock, he asked if Sadie would keep working. The restaurant still didn't have enough crew members. She said okay. At 11 o'clock, the manager asked her to help close the restaurant. Sadie finally left the McDonald's at 3:30 in the morning. The next day, when Sadie showed up for her shift at McDonald's, one of the managers gave her a thank you present. After all, she had just worked for 19 and a half hours straight, without any sleep and with only a half-hour break. The gift was a bag of candy. McUnions. In the summer of 1998, Pascal McDuff sent job applications to 10 different McDonald's near his home in Montreal, Canada. Pascal was 15 years old and excited about the idea of working at McDonald's. His parents had taken him there about once a month as a special treat when he was growing up. Pascal went for an interview with the manager at the McDonald's on Peel Street. The two-story restaurant was in the heart of downtown Montreal and had a cheery, modern look with lots of shiny steel and glass. The manager told him that McDonald's treated its workers well and paid well if they worked hard. Pascal got the job, started working there during the summer, and later worked there at night after school. He was asked to do all sorts of tasks in the kitchen. He pulled frozen hamburger patties from the freezer and tossed them on the grill. He placed the cooked patties on buns. He pushed the button that squirted the Big Mac sauce onto them. He carried trash out to the dumpster, cleaned the big vats that hold cooking oil, filled the ketchup bins, mopped the floors, and he took pride in doing the job well. The managers complimented Pascal on his hard work. Whenever they phoned him to say that a crew member had failed to show up, he would get on the bus and go to the restaurant to help out. 5 months after being hired, Pascal was named Employee of the Month at the Peel Street McDonald's. Not long afterward, he received a work evaluation from his managers. A work evaluation is like a report card for workers, who get one of 4 different grades: doesn't meet standards, good work, excellent work, and exceptional work. Pascal was surprised to find that the grade he got was good work. He felt hurt and thought that after all the hard effort, he deserved better. Pascal started talking to other crew members at the restaurant and got the impression that some of the people who worked the hardest had also received low grades. It didn't make any sense. And then Pascal realized that a worker's pay increase was tied directly to his or her grade in the evaluation. By keeping grades low, the restaurant could keep wages low. His good work grade brought a pay increase of only 10 cents an hour. Pascal worked 30 hours a week at the restaurant, which meant his pay raise would give him just an extra $3 a week, barely enough to buy a Big Mac. It wasn't the money that upset him. It was the way the Peel Street McDonald's seemed to treat its workers with disrespect. A manager he liked suddenly left, and a new manager kept high school kids on the job until midnight, even when they had exams the next day. People who seemed to deserve promotions didn't get them. Pascal thought that something had to be done to help these workers. One day in the summer of 2000, Pascal left the restaurant with his friend Maxime Cromp. Both of them worked at the Peel Street McDonald's. Pascal had been there for 2 years. As the two friends rode the subway home, discussing all the restaurant's problems, Maxime suggested that maybe they should start a labor union. "Yeah," Pascal replied, "that would be interesting." A labor union is a group of workers who join together to gain better wages and working conditions. When a single worker tries to negotiate with a boss, he or she may feel weak and powerless. Why should a boss listen to one person who can easily be fired? But when workers form a labor union and speak to their boss as a strong, united group, they have a much better chance of success. Labor unions have been formed in the United States since the early 1800s, but they didn't gain much power until the early 20th century. Unions played a leading role in protecting workers from abuse and in getting them good wages. Before the rise of labor unions, children were put to work in dangerous factories. Companies forced people to work 6 or 7 days a week. Women and minorities faced discrimination on the job, and workers rarely received health insurance or retirement benefits. The basic idea behind a labor union is that ordinary workers not only deserve respect, but also deserve a fair share of the profits earned from their hard work. In 1960, about 1 out of every 3 American workers belonged to a labor union. Today, only 1 out of 8 belongs to a union. Over the past few decades, labor unions have lost a great deal of their strength. Some union leaders became corrupt, stealing money from workers and giving unions a bad reputation. More importantly, a number of companies decided they didn't like unions and did everything they could to get rid of them. When company executives deal with a union, they have to find ways to bargain, negotiate, and compromise. When there's no union, these executives have tremendous control over how they pay and treat their workers. In June 2000, Pascal and Maxim secretly met with a representative of the Canadian Confederation of National Trade Unions, CNTU. They were afraid that if McDonald's found out they were trying to start a union, they might get fired. The CNTU representative warned that it was very difficult to organize fast food workers. Crew members are often young, poor, and unlikely to work at any fast food restaurant for long. Not a good combination when a union organizer needs to convince them to stick together and bravely fight for their rights. In order to form a union, an organizer had to persuade half the workers at the restaurant to sign a card saying they wanted to join. It would be a big challenge. Nevertheless, Pascal and Maxim said they wanted to go ahead with it. The CNTU was impressed and offered to help. For the next few weeks, Pascal quietly spoke to other crew members about the working conditions and the pay at the restaurant. Most of the workers seemed unhappy with how the place was being run. At first, Pascal didn't mention the idea of a union, but once he felt confident that there would be support for one, he and Maxim began to hand out union cards. According to the labor laws, the cards couldn't be signed on the job, so the two of them met with other crew members after work, standing at the entrance to the subway, sitting in Maxim's car, visiting people at their houses. It wasn't difficult to persuade workers to sign a card. Within a few days, about 3/4 had agreed to form a union. They were excited to be working together for a common cause. Pascal and Maxim thought they'd managed to obtain all the necessary signatures without any of the managers finding out. They were wrong. One of the crew members had warned a manager that they were forming a union. The crew member was rewarded with a promotion, and then, just 2 days after Pascal and Maxim gave the government all the signatures they needed to start a union, the Peel Street McDonald's suddenly hired 24 new crew members. By adding so many workers at once, the owner of the restaurant hoped to block the union. If those 24 were included in the count, Pascal and Maxim wouldn't have cards from half the workforce. With help from the CNTU, Pascal and Maxim challenged the restaurant owner in court, arguing that hiring all those workers at the last minute was an attempt to prevent a fair count of the vote. They won the case, and in November 2000, crew members at the Peel Street McDonald's joined a union, the only union at a McDonald's in North America. The owner of the McDonald's immediately appealed the decision. Pascal and Maxim held rallies outside the restaurant, seeking public support for the workers. "I can't understand how a company making billions of dollars can't share it with the youths who help make it rich," Pascal said at one of these rallies. McDonald's, however, had not given up the fight. Rumors were spread among the crew members that their union fees would go straight into Pascal's bank account, which wasn't true. Workers were promised free meals if they'd consider leaving the union. Flyers criticizing the union were distributed. They featured a drawing of Pascal with money falling from his pockets. Instead of encouraging cooperation and solidarity, the company pitted one young worker against another. Meanwhile, the legal battle continued in court. The Quebec Labor Commissioner promised to decide in May 2001 whether the union's victory at the Peel Street McDonald's should be upheld. A month before that ruling, the owner of the restaurant announced that it would be shut down. He claimed that the rent for the building had grown too expensive and that the restaurant's closing had nothing to do with the union. The union victory was upheld by the Labor Commissioner, but a few weeks later, the owner of the Peel Street McDonald's shut the restaurant down. McDonald's has about 1,400 restaurants in Canada, and it opens about 75 new ones there every year. The odds against a McDonald's restaurant in Canada going out of business, based on the chain's failure rate since the early 1990s, are about 300 to 1. It's an amazing coincidence that a McDonald's in Canada, where workers voted to join a union, suddenly went out of business. "Did somebody say McUnion?" a newspaper editorial later asked. "Not if they want to keep their McJob." Pascal McDuff earned a degree in political science at the University of Montreal and now hopes to become a journalist. He wants to write books and articles that show people what's happening in the world, that tell them the truth. He has no regrets about spending a year trying to help the workers of McDonald's. They put up a good fight for a good cause. Ever since the Peel Street restaurant closed, instead of working with a union, he refuses to eat at McDonald's. They hurt me and they hurt other people, Pascal says, and it's hard for me to give them any money.